Well, I think I'm going to share my screen and get started. So I want to start today's meeting with a land acknowledgement, which is something that we have started doing at farms. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land that farms and the farmers here today are on is the past, present, and future homeland of the Oceti-Sakowin, Assiniboine, Dakota, Sisseton, Pabaksa, and Wahpeton, Medewa-Kantan, Anishinaabe, Ojibwa, Chippewa, Métis, Lakota, Cheyenne, Hunkpapa, Crow, Blackfoot, and others which I may not have named. I want to thank the elders, past and present, who have cared for this land and acknowledge that we are located on traditional, ancestral, and contemporary lands of Indigenous people who cared for and called these places home from time in and out of mind, and for whom the land, water, and ecology hold historical, spiritual, and personal significance. Farms advocates for the sovereignty of the Native nations and will work to hold ourselves accountable to all American Indian people and nations. And if you want to know more about land acknowledgements or find the land, find whose ancestral homelands you are located on, I am going to put in the chat a couple of links. So nativeland.ca has maps where you can enter your zip code and learn whose homelands you're on. And if you want to know more about land acknowledgements and why I chose to do them and why they matter, there's a great resource from what are these guys called? The Department of, I can't remember, Department of Arts and Culture, U.S. Department of Arts and Culture. So you'll find those in the chat. Okay. So thanks for joining us today. This is the first time that we've done an orientation just for the Ag Intern hosts. We'll cover some of the changes to the program. We'll cover how the program has developed over the 8 years now that we've had an internship program, and some of the things that we'll ask of you this summer. But why do we have the Sustainable Ag Internship Program? What's our big purpose, our overarching goal? Well, farms exist to strengthen sustainable agriculture and build local food systems. We want to see more farmers on the land. We know that the number of acres in production in North Dakota is continually increasing, but the number of farmers is decreasing, which means that the farms are getting bigger and in the hands of fewer and larger entities. Likewise, the average age of a farmer in North Dakota is increasing. So we need to grow the next generation of farmers. We also want agriculture to be more sustainable. So we want to see more sustainable practices used. So that's why we provide education. And we want more locally grown food and ag products to be available for all North Dakotans. So how does the internship program fit in with this? Well, we hope that after a summer interning, interns will have increased their sustainable production skills. They'll have increased their knowledge of sustainable agriculture and local food systems. And we want them to develop a lifelong love of farming. Sorry, don't know why I do that. Start their own farms and work in agriculture and food systems and ag education. I really love my job, I guess. Or even if they don't go on to work in farming, simply become more informed consumers and lifelong supporters of local farms and local food. So that's why we're here today. So I want to start with introductions. We'll go around the room and I'd like you to say who you are, what farm you represent and where that's located. And we've got on the screen images of 3 of our past mentor farmers. One of them's you, Nola, working with Damari on tomato pruning. So who's been a significant teacher or mentor to you, and what's a lesson that you have learned from them? And I will start to give you a second to think about your answer to that question. I'm Stephanie Blumhagen. I'm the executive director of Farms. Farms is located in Tuttle, North Dakota, but I work remotely from my home in Bottineau, up by the Canadian border. And I have had so many significant teachers and mentors. My mom taught me about gardening, and she loves plants. So she taught me about the plants in the pasture and what they were and which ones are edible. I've had mentors throughout my work life. I'll stop there. Felicity, would you like to go?
Yeah, my name is Felicity Merritt. I am not a mentor of a farm, but I am here as, well, I'm the coordinator for the North Dakota Local Food Development Alliance, and I'm also running Farms' other internship program, which is the Farmers Market Internship Program, where we place interns at farmers markets. So I am running that program with Stephanie, and so I'm here today to just kind of help out where it's needed. I also have had a lot of significant mentors throughout my life. I would say my most recent would probably be my advisor. I am finishing up my master's at NDSU right now in the plant science department, and I worked for the potato breeding program. And she just, if you've ever met her, loves potatoes more than anyone I've ever met. And so that kind of passion for agriculture is infectious. So that is my mentor.
Sorry, I had myself muted. Amber, would you go next? Oh, sorry, you were drinking.
Sure, that's all right. My name is Amber Lockhart, and I run Heart and Soil Farm, and we're located in Gardner, North Dakota, which is about 25 miles north of Fargo. And a significant teacher mentor. I used to work for the California School Boards Association's foundation, and we dealt with a lot of potentially flashpoint topics in the state of California's education system. And I remember having my supervisor, we were having a really rough period, and she took me aside, and it was my first, real adult job after grad school. And she said, listen, you can give me lots of problems to put on the table, but for every one, I want a potential solution. It doesn't have to make sense, but I want you to tell me that you've thought about the whole problem. And it was the only constructive criticism I've ever taken with a grain of salt and appreciated. And it stuck with me. I think about that on a regular basis when I am feeling frustrated. And I tell that to my husband all the time. So that's my best lesson that I've learned from a mentor.
Wonderful. Harleen.
Okay, so I'm Harleen Hatterman Valenti, and I don't really have a farm per se, but we do have a research farm at NDSU where I'm a high value crops research specialist, And so we do a lot of research with vegetables and small fruits. Um, as far as a significant teacher or mentor, boy, um, there's been a lot, but like Stephanie, I think my parents would probably be my mentors that had the most significance, because they were the first ones to introduce me to agriculture. We had a huge garden, and working it, and actually just seeing progress, and actually growing your own food. And then the lesson, I guess my father always went and kind of went and had actions speak louder than words. And so what you do really is what people will remember, not what you say.
That's a good one. And just so you know why I'm having you do this, towards the end of our time today, we'll have a discussion about what makes a good mentor, some things you can think about as you're supervising and mentoring your intern this summer. Heidi.
My name is Heidi Ziegenmeyer. I work at Chandaska-Chicana Community College in Fort Totten, North Dakota. And we have like student internships, apprenticeships in our, like at our community garden, and with some gardening projects. And we're starting hydroponics here at the college this year. So we do it as part of our kind of land grant status that the college has. So, and then my mentor, I've had, like a lot of you, a number of people that are important. I would say my first like real adult jobs boss, I think one lesson I learned was how to supervise others with integrity, I think. So, all right, thanks.
Thank you, Heidi. Dawn.
Hi, Dawn Rognerud. We own Rognerud Farms in East Grand Forks. I've had a few mentors. I guess early on it would be my grandmother. She was passionate about her garden, and a lot of fun memories there. But as it pertains to my farm and farm journey, as well as by extension the market, I would have to say it was Carol Lester. She's just a great listener, and somebody you can really talk to and work through a problem with. And she pushes people to reach their potential, even though they might not, realize their own potential.
Wonderful. Well, then I suppose I should skip to Carol.
Thanks, Dawn. That was very sweet. I'm Carol Lester. I run Stable Days Youth Ranch. We're located up in East Grand Forks, Minnesota, just 4 miles away from downtown Grand Forks, North Dakota. Significant teacher, currently I have a mentor named Bettina Job, and one of the things that she's been challenging me to do is to be considering my personal wellness and growth, and really be leaning into that mindfulness, not taking on too much, but also not getting into a place of too much stagnant thought as well. Always be stretching. I love to learn. I think that I got that from my grandmother. I think even as in her 90s, she was still taking courses on how to be a better gardener. Just always wanting to learn more and to advance herself.
Very cool. Nola.
Hi, I'm Nola Storm. I'm with Growing Together. community gardens. And like many of you, my grandparents and my mom, because we all were farmers, we all were on farms, and getting to tag along and be involved because that's just what you did when you're a little farm kid. And to learn, I think what I learned from them was that if you take care of the land, it will take care of you. They gardened and farmed gently and loved the animals, even though they knew that we would end up eating them, but they took such tender care and loved them. And also Jack, because I learned from Jack, there's endless possibilities, and you in people and in gardening. And I've learned from our New American families, I've learned so much about there's a lot more to a plant than just the fruit that comes off of it, but ways to use things that we consider weeds or parts of plants that most of us wouldn't consider eating are actually quite delicious and edible if prepared the right way.
Wonderful. And Jen.
All right, hello. I am Jen Skoog with Family Roots Farm, located just outside of Christine, North Dakota, 25 miles south of Fargo. And I've had lots of significant teachers and mentors over the years. I have a good friend of mine, Sandy, who lives just a few miles, or not even 2 miles down the road from me, who, as I'm in the midst of lambing right now, has reminded me over and over and over again, keep calm, don't freak out. And I will warn you guys, I have a sheep right now who looks like she's gonna go anytime. So if I all of a sudden disappear, I'm out delivering a lamb. So please bear with me. But yes, and it's been huge in many aspects of my life, just kind of being reminded to keep calm, don't freak out.
Well, thank you all. So we have all learned from mentors and teachers, and this summer you have the opportunity to be that mentor to your intern. So the internship program fits at the beginning of farm's succession of programming. So as I said, our goal is to grow new farmers and increase sustainable practices. So we start with the exploring stage, and that includes the sustainable ag internships, farmers market internships. We have a farming readiness program called Farm Dreams, and field days. And from there, someone can move on to the next phase, which is growing successful farmers. That's our Farm Beginnings course. We have loans and grants. Again, the field days, one-on-one mentorship, which is a separate program from what you're doing, but some of you have been mentors, and workshops and webinars that we offer throughout the year. And then from there, once you've established your farm and gained experience, we invite you to help us cultivate the next generation of farmers. And that's where you're at, hosting and teaching interns. We also, there's also opportunities for you to be mentors for beginning farmers. We assign mentors both to the Farm Beginnings students, and we have a 12-month mentorship program. We invite experienced farmers to present at workshops and webinars and to host farm field days. So it completes the cycle, and the ones in the third column teach the ones in the first two columns. And just like our farms, the programming is cyclical and sustainable, hopefully. That's our goal. So the internship program has changed over the years. Based on my digging through the archives, I think we've had an internship program since 2013. And when it first started, interns tended to live on the farms. The learning consisted of 2 or 3 books that they were given to read throughout the summer, and they'd gather several times for potlucks and to discuss the books. as the program evolved, we started doing non-residential internships. It's not always feasible for the interns to be living on the farms. We added articles, podcasts, and more learning topics, and the discussion moved online to Slack. We would assign a question every Monday, and they would chat back and forth using Slack is a virtual discussion chat tool. And then we beefed up the field days to incorporate a work project, a meal, so that we built community through working together, learning together, eating together, and playing together. So we increased our focus on community. In 2020, we replaced the Slack discussion with a weekly Zoom class, added more resources, started bringing in guest speakers to some of those weekly classes. We continued the field days with that same format. Relationship building and community building is always going to be a central focus of all of Farm's programs. And we built an online learning management system, which we call the Intern Learning Portal, for lack of a better name, so that interns can submit their hours and find their readings online in one place. So that's been the development of the program. So this year, we're continuing that and adding more changes. We will continue doing the Zoom classes weekly. And we will add more structure and organization to those by establishing learning objectives for each week. And we'll have more resources. This year, we may have other guest speakers, but I've got a wealth of knowledge right here in the host farmers. So I'm going to invite you all to come in to one of those classes. There's 10 of you, so 10 of those, we've got 15 weeks in our learning program. So 10 of those weeks, you'll be invited to come in for like a 10-minute presentation on what happens at your farm, what's unique, what have you learned. Another thing we're adding this year is having interns visit nearby farms and farmers markets and reporting back what new things they've learned. So you've got other sustainable farms in your area. Some of those other farms are also hosting interns. So the interns can broaden their learning by visiting nearby farms. Maybe you're not raising chickens, but your neighbor is, things like that. And interns that visit other farms that have interns, that provides an opportunity for the intern to share what they're doing, give the other intern a tour. Teaching is one of the best ways to learn. I'm going to add some weekly assignments. These won't be huge, they'll be small little things. So the idea is to give them opportunities to implement what they're reading and discussing. So for example, we will have some readings on soil health one week, and we'll probably have a speaker. We'll very likely have a farm tour on soil health. So then they'll be assigned to maybe discuss with you what you've been doing on your farm to build the health of your soil. And maybe we'll have them dig up a soil sample or do a water infiltration test, something to get their hands on what they've learned and put it to practice. That will also include weekly check-in visits with you, the hosts. So I'll be having you schedule a time each week to sit down with your intern and discuss their progress and what they're learning and answer questions. And so sometimes their assignment will be, we've read about sustainability this week. I want you to interview your host farmer about what sustainability looks like on their farm. How are they implementing social, economic, and environmentally sustainable practices? We will have field days again. So that will be in addition to the individual visits to neighboring farms. And this year, what will be new is that we will try to include the farmers market interns on those field days to expand their learning. We have 6 farmers market interns that will be placed at 6 farmers markets. The field days haven't been scheduled yet, but I'm hoping for June, July, and August. I'm keeping an eye on COVID guidelines, and eventually I'd like to be able to invite the public on field days, but I'm a little hesitant this year I think it might still be wise to keep group sizes small, but field days will be primarily outdoors. So, and then the other new thing this year is increased structure and guidance for you, the host farmers. Your role is so important in providing that mentorship and teaching to the interns. And I've seen many of you over the years taking it upon yourself to go above and beyond to provide teaching opportunities. So I've taken cues from you and incorporated those things that you're doing into the program. Okay, so nuts and bolts things that have changed. This year, for the first time, we are paying interns hourly, and they will be viewed as employees of farms. So they're going to fill out a W-4, and we will have to count them on our tax forms and our liability insurance. So they will have to track their hours daily on a time card, and we will have a system through an electronic system using the portal. Your role will be to approve hours and approve activities. I'm hesitant to say right now exactly what intervals it will be because we're still working out the nuts and bolts of the portal, but you will have a login to that portal, which also means you will be able to see what they're learning and what resources they're getting so that you can, and you're welcome to participate in the weekly sessions, even on days that you're not presenting too. So they'll be paid hourly, need to track hours daily on a time card. Their stipend has increased to $15 an hour. This is because we believe in trying to be as equitable as possible, and because I've been watching the news and the federal minimum wage may or may not increase, but we might as well move it to 15 an hour now. That means that because of the funding that we have, we can afford to pay for 375 hours for the season for 10 interns. So we'll be monitoring their hours, and we'll let them know if they're in danger of exceeding those, or if they're, if they have extra hours. They don't have to use all 375 hours, but we'll let them know, oh, hey, you have more hours that you could be using. That comes out to about 20 hours a week if they're doing 18 weeks. Some of your interns have to end their internship in August to go back to school. So if they're doing fewer weeks, they can increase their hours per week a little bit. We have one intern who will only be doing 15 weeks because she has to leave at the beginning of August. So we're allowing her to do 25 hours per week. On the other hand, some of your interns want to stay on through October to experience the end of the season, post-harvest cleanup, all of that. And so they may have to work fewer hours in a week to make them that 375 hours stretch all the way through October, or perhaps they need to take a vacation for a week or two in July. I just say July because that tends to be the slower part of the season. So we'll be monitoring that. Just we'll make the hours fit. Some of you have asked if the learning activities count as hours, and they do. So interns get paid for the time that they spend in class, for the time that they spend reading, for the time that you have your weekly sit-down check-ins, field days, farm visits. And these aren't rules. These are just, I've also had questions about, well, how much time are they going to spend learning versus working? So I'm estimating about 5 hours. If they're doing 20 hours in a week, about a quarter or 5 hours probably would be learning. That's an hour of class, an hour meeting with their host farmer, some time visiting other farms, field days, reading. When we have those field days across the state, that might take up more learning hours. And then the other 15 hours would be working or hands-on learning. That's just a guideline. That's not, we're not going to ask them to report or, hold them to, that's a rough estimate. And you will have access to the intern portal this year. And you'll approve activity reports and time cards in that way. So that's how you will, you will get an email. You'll get communication from me in the next week or two with instructions. You'll have to create your login and password to access that. Okay, yes, okay, I can get through this in 15 minutes. Your interns, I'm going to be sending you a host farmer handbook and a learning plan template. Some of you have done learning plans with your interns before. Some of you have been interns and have completed your own learning plans. You created the basis of a learning plan when you filled out your application. I asked you a bunch of questions about what happens on your farm at different parts of the season. What do you do about marketing? Do you do on-farm research? And so I'll be sending your application back to you so that you can refer to so you don't have to rewrite all those. You thought it through once, you wrote it down. You'd probably like to use that. So the learning plan will, so I'll have you sit down with your intern before their May 17th start date. And you'll have your application. I'll have the schedule of weekly readings and topics to you by May 10th. And you'll talk with the intern. One of those things will just be housekeeping things. You'll create your weekly schedule. Are they going to work on Tuesdays and Fridays and take Wednesdays off? Or, and then you'll decide what day and time you'll meet for your weekly sit down or your weekly check-in. Do you have things to work around, such as CSA deliveries, farmers markets? Maybe some of them might have a second job that they have to work around. Some of you might have a day job that you have to work around. And then for the learning plan, you'll talk about what are their learning goals, and some of them put that on their applications. So I'll make sure that you have that information too, and talk about what their independent project will be. So as part of their learning, we want them to have a project that they can take charge of. Last year, Jonathan at Stable Days did a vermicomposting bin. Carol, did Pear do something with beekeeping, or you guys started chickens?
Pear actually did mushrooms.
Okay. So I asked you what some possible independent projects might be when you filled out the application. So And the project is just based on your interns' interests and what you have going on at the farm, you know, what the possibilities are at your farm. And that will also be a good time to discuss communication and work styles, expectations, meals and breaks. Are there any boundaries, any off-limit areas on the farm, things like that. So this is just a glimpse at some of the topics that we'll cover. I don't know if we'll get to, I think we might get to all of these. I don't know if we'll get to all of these by the end of August. So interns that have to leave might not get to every topic, but so a wide range. And again, I'll be putting together the curriculum later this week. And so you will get that by next week, Monday. I'll just leave it here a second so you can read it. And I will try to align your presentations with the topics that fit what you're doing. So the week that we have grapes and fruit production, that might be the week that I invite Sean Bollinger from Bear Creek Winery to speak. I can't come up with any other matches off the top of my head, but I know that you all are doing really cool things and a wide diversity of things. So I'll keep the topics in mind when I'm inviting you to speak. COVID guidelines is something we always have to discuss these days. So first off, interns are considered legally employees of farms, and so they must follow farms' COVID policies. We do have a COVID policy, and so that will be in your handbook. Generally, so masks will be required when in public and indoors, basically field days, farm visits, farmers market, whenever they're interacting with the public. Continue maintaining 6 feet of distance, wash hands frequently. If we're having an event like a field day where we'll be together, we have a 3-question health screening survey that we had the interns do last year. The same questions that you've seen. Have you had symptoms? Have you had a positive test? Have you been exposed to somebody who's positive? And I will be ordering Farms branded cloth masks again and sending them to all the interns. Would you like them too? I could send you guys one too if you want. Maybe. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And then we just encourage you to think through how you'll handle COVID precautions and establish your own policies on the farm. How will you handle meals, indoor spaces versus outdoor spaces? We're in kind of a weird time right now when we're all, you know, part of the population is immunized. We're all kind of tired of all this, but it's still out there and cases are still increasing in some places. So I think it's best to remain cautious and vigilant and put the safety of our farmers and interns foremost. So just some upcoming dates. Orientation for the interns is going to be May 11th. That's Tuesday from 3 to 4 p.m. Weekly classes will be Tuesdays from 3 to 4 p.m. I had told the interns 2 to 3 p.m. and I need to change that to 3 to 4 because I have a I have an ongoing meeting that I can't move. Local Food Development Alliance meets at 2 o'clock on Tuesday. Farm staff will do site visits. Well, I'm going to try for late June. I hope I may have a program manager hired by then, so they would be doing those site visits. If it's still just me, those site visits might be on Zoom, or I might coordinate them with the June farm tour. Field days to be determined, hopefully mid-June, mid-July, mid-August, maybe a bonus day in mid-September. No guarantees because I haven't scheduled them yet, but I'm thinking about Minokan Farm again, which is near Bismarck and always a great favorite. I'm planning to reach out to Jen and your neighbors, the Alpaca Farm, Crooked Lane, the winery. So hopefully we can organize a tour, a day tour there. I had Linda Black Elk, who is an ethnobotanist and works for United Tribes Technical College. She did a plant medicine for beginners webinar for us this winter. And I asked her if she'd do a plant walk. So that might be one of our tours. And there could be others. The sky's the limit. Well, the sky isn't the limit, the funding is the limit, but and time. So stay tuned for that. And I will make sure that I'm going to try to schedule those this week and next so that people can put them on their calendars. Heads up that we have a new communications coordinator who is going to start on Monday the 10th, Nora Larson. She is our communications coordinator, AmeriCorps member. So she may be joining some of our sessions to take photos and videos. And your to-do list is keep an eye on your email inbox for that handbook and learning plan template. Schedule a meeting with your intern between now and the 18th. Your interns will all be getting their enrollment paperwork forms from me. Just maybe give them a gentle reminder. Help me, remind them to get that in because we do need that stuff in before they can start. It's the W4, I-9, ACH, and media release. And then when you do have that meeting with your intern, you'll determine the weekly schedule, you'll schedule your weekly check-in, you'll discuss learning goals, you'll discuss their individual project, discuss farm policies and boundaries, and talk about communication styles and learning styles. And I'll provide guidance for all of those things in the learning plan template. Okay, so good. I made it. I made it to where I wanted to be at 12:45. So first, I want to see if you have questions. And then I want to have a discussion about mentoring success, tips and tricks. So, and then in the last 8 minutes or so, I want to talk about the future of this program how we can continue to serve farmers and grow interns, but also financially sustain the program. So first off, questions. What have I missed?
A question from Harleen in the chat about if COVID guidelines change, the state guidelines change, do you think that the farms guidelines will adapt to that?
Farms is going to base our guidelines on the CDC's guidelines. So regardless of what the state says, we're going to stick with the CDC recommendations. But our guidelines could change depending. I'll continue to monitor the best advice, CDC and World Health Organization.
With the small project that the intern will be doing on the farm, I was wondering if you have specific guidelines or a learning plan that you want to create for that, or what specifically do you need from us to make sure that's happening and they're hitting whatever learning goal they're hoping for.
Well, that's a great question. I could add some questions to the learning plan specifically about the project. And the project will vary from intern to intern based on their specific interests, but I'll be, what I'd like is for in your weekly check-in for you to be, talking about, how is that project coming along? Have you come into any roadblocks? Encouraging them to do independent research, not just passively ask you, but maybe ask you and you would say, well, let's think about that. Maybe do some research and develop critical thinking skills. So would it be helpful if I gave you like some questions that you could ask during those weekly check-ins to help spark?
I mean, I'm personally comfortable with, doing that on our own for the farm. I was just wondering if there was anything that you wanted, any documentation on the farm's end.
So the individual project isn't something that we have, like, it's not something we have to report to a grantor. It exists to enrich the intern's learning experience, and I'm trying to design the program with an emphasis on learning, so that, and give the hosts guidelines so that it doesn't become weeding every day, or like doing the same thing every day, more like a job, which it generally isn't for most of you. But I figured you might like the help creating the structure and the guidance and mentorship. So I don't know, does that answer that? It's kind of new, and so we're still sort of feeling it.
No, that's fine. Our firm has generally done that, so we're comfortable with that. I just wanted to know if there was anything extra you wanted us to make sure that the intern was doing in terms of writing or documentation.
Yeah, they will be asked in their activity reports questions about what worked well this week, what challenges did you encounter, what new things did you learn, what independent research did you do to answer your questions, things like that.
Stephanie, did you want us to wait until after the 11th when they have the interns meet with you to meet with them, or is it okay to meet before?
It's okay to meet before, but it'll probably work better if you wait until after the 11th, simply because they'll be on the same page, having gone through an orientation, and they'll be more familiar. Okay. So, mentoring and supervising, well, one, they're two different things, but you're kind of doing both with your interns. And they're, it can be challenging for some of us. I know that for me, I know how to do the task, but it's a lot harder if I have to explain the task to somebody else. Like, a lot of things we know how to do intuitively, but then suddenly trying to get somebody else to do it is really difficult. And so I just wanted to have a conversation with you all about tips for mentoring success. Now, the slide that I have front of you is from the National Mentoring Partnership. And I don't think these were written with this kind of program in mind. So I invite you to, say, oh, that one doesn't really make sense, or that one's really good. But in general, what I know is that positive affirmation goes a long way. Telling interns what they're doing right goes a long way. Thanking them for their work. Being intentional about communication, careful listening, open-ended questions. I'm not sure about this sharing your thoughts and feelings with your mentee. I think that's a different kind of program, but you're welcome to. I mean, because it is about building relationships. But if we're talking about something really technical, like assessing your tomato plants for disease, I don't, you can share how you feel. You probably feel angry about the diseases. So that is good too. What have you as mentors learned about what has worked well in your, or what challenges have come up?
I think it's easy sometimes to try to micromanage. And that's hard. Like when you were talking about, how to do something. What we've tried to do at Growing Together is have them work alongside with someone who does a specific task quite well.
Mm-hmm.
And then expect that intern to then take a group and then teach that task to the next group. So when we would have maybe before the whole garden group shows up, we walk the intern through a task a few times and talk to them about it, and then watch how they did the task, and then either critique or applaud the success. And then when the whole group is there, after the initial, let's all hold the weeds, and then when we break down into different things, having those interns be the leaders of the tasks, to teach the skills that they have learned, even though they might be working with somebody who's done this before, but to give the group the understanding that this is that intern's job today, is to lead and to teach, so that we, who have maybe had a lot more experience, don't try to drive that car, you know what I mean, at that particular time. That and then also learning how to be kind and gentle when making a correction, to do it in a way that is respectful, and you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. Just because something doesn't make you smart, whatever. But anyway,
I think the having the interns teach is a great way to solidify their own learning. We learn by teaching. And also, I liked what you said about, giving them room to do it themselves and maybe make some of the mistakes. And I think that might be important to point out, especially for those who haven't had interns yet. You might have to be prepared to sacrifice a few plants in the name of giving your interns room to learn and grow. I had a host one year describe how they had allowed the intern some freedom, and the rhubarb, I think it was, got planted upside down. So, sometimes things have to be redone, or you might lose a few plants. So I think it's better to plan for that and expect that, in order to maintain harmony, rather than being like, shoot, if you're counting on, I don't know. Have any of you had experiences like that? Because this is part of your livelihood too. So
I know we had an experience similar to that. We had a watering fiasco. This was quite a few years ago, and we went to another field to do some work and left the intern to turn the watering off before they left, and they forgot, and we didn't go back to that field until the 2 days later to find out it had been watered that whole time. And so that was a good learning experience for all of us, and to learn how to state that this didn't go well, but obviously not be frustrated because we all make mistakes. We've all left the water on too long. So.
One thing that's occurring to me that I haven't addressed or put in the handbook before is like, how do you organize your day with the intern? Do you give them a to-do list, or do you write out workflows? Do you have charts posted?
Every time we meet at the garden, we use whiteboards and markers. And so we sit down, usually we have the intern and the leadership team at that particular garden discuss either the task the week before or that like earlier before the rest of the crew shows up. And so and then we say, what things do we need to do? What needs to be first? And how do we need to break it down and put everybody into the area where we need the work done? So it's all written out on a whiteboard. And then we, assign the tasks and the groups and those kind of things. So we do that each time we meet. It's written out. And our interns go to all the different gardens. So each garden does it similarly, but each of the gardens, they have their own kind of leadership at the different places. And so, but we try to include the interns in making those decisions about which things need to be done first, while we're at that particular garden, and brainstorm that list of tasks depending on, what it looks like that day, or what, your plants are telling you, and the weeds are telling you, or whatever's telling you.
Okay, well, it is 1. And so I know some of you have to log off. Are some of you able to stick around for about 10 more minutes? Okay, and I'll keep recording. So do you all feel really confident about your workflows and how you organize the day and direct the interns, or is that something you'd like more guidance on?
I mean, I think it's always good to have some guidance. We kind of are pretty comfortable, but I mean, we can always learn. So any input, I think, me personally would be grateful for, but
I think like you said, some guidance regarding workflow specifically for the intern, I think or for the intern would be helpful. Mm-hmm. I think last year when I did it for the first year last year, I felt we're just kind of all over the place.
Yeah. And personally, that's something I struggle with in my own work life, is like, especially when I'm managing other people, creating the workflows and knowing who needs to be doing what at what time, so that everything fits together and so that the other person gets what they need. So I can do some looking for webinars or resources that exist. I could also set up a separate little webinar with other farmers where they can share what they've learned. I know like Lori Martin is at Roving Donkey Farm is super organized. Maybe she has some tips and tricks. So I will think about that. The last thing I wanted to talk with you all, and I'm going to stop screen sharing, is so this, we pay the stipends for the interns at farms, and that means I am continually writing grants to find that funding. With the change to paying them as employees, that increased the cost per intern, because we also are responsible for payroll taxes and things like that. And then with the increase to 15 an hour. So I think now it is somewhere in the ballpark of $7,000 per intern for a season. I do get some funding from, I do have a grant that was awarded from USDA NRCS. So if you work with NRCS, thank them. Or if you know Mary Podol, thank her for their support of this program. And I do continually write other grants, but we continually have a great interest in this program, and from both interns and farmers. And it's continually getting more expensive. So my challenge is, how do we sustain this program long-term financially? And what what are our options to still be able to serve farmers and serve interns, but maintain it? I know that a lot of other programs, well, the other internship programs that I've looked at, for example, the Rogue Farm Corps based in the Rogue Valley in Oregon, they have the farmers pay the interns. So the organization doesn't pay the stipends. They simply make the match and provide the educational curriculum. And the interns pay a $200 application fee. I'm not sure that that's our solution, because I still want to be accessible to interns from all financial capacities and walks of life. And I want to be accessible to farmers. Yeah, so like, if you were to be required to pay part of the internship stipend, is that something that would be feasible for your organization? Or an application fee? Or maybe we just double down on grants and sponsorships? Maybe I engage you in helping recruit sponsorships for the program from businesses and corporations in your region. I would love to hear your thoughts.
I think it's worth talking about. We are a nonprofit growing together. But it's something that we could look at in the future. Maybe sharing the cost might be an option. I don't know if we could ever afford to pay the full cost as a nonprofit, but it's something we could look at if it meant the difference between losing the program. Anyway, we could definitely talk about it.
I sometimes look at AmeriCorps as an example, mainly because I was an AmeriCorps member and am hosting AmeriCorps members, so I'm familiar. But they require a cost share. So I think for Felicity, for example, she's an AmeriCorps state. She's at 900 hours for over 12 months. So they pay her stipend, but we had to pay, I think, $5,000 cost share.
I agree with Nola. I think it's definitely worth a discussion to be had. I don't think we can solve all the world's problems today, but
right.
To at least keep it as a discussion, consider our different options, like you mentioned, there might be a few other options, a few different routes we can possibly go, maybe combining a few of those to kind of benefit everybody.
Yeah. I do plan to do a sponsorship campaign this summer. And so I will be reaching out to you all, one, for testimonials to include in those materials. And two, I might do something similar to what so I'm enrolled in Rural Leadership North Dakota. And one of the things that they had us do, they provide a letter template and stationery, but then we send that out to businesses in our community asking for, would you give a $500 sponsorship or $1,000 sponsorship to support this program, which is benefiting leaders in your own community. So that is something I'm thinking about, and I might ask you all if you would help send those letters out to businesses in your community with personalized testimonials about how the program has benefited your farm. Thank you, Nola. Great to have you. So I think that's, unless there's any last comments, I think we can end the meeting. Really appreciate your time today, and look forward to seeing you at field days and maybe site visits, and looking forward to the summer.